Hi, I'm excited to be here. My name is Max Porterfield. I'm President and CEO of Callinex Mines. We've got a portfolio of base and precious metals rich VMS deposits within close proximity to known Canadian mining jurisdictions. Most notably, we've got a very, very high grade copper gold discovery called the Rainbow Deposit, just a 30-minute drive from the town of Flin Flon, Manitoba, that's quickly emerging at a very critical time for that community.
Max, thank you very much. Good introduction. Good to meet you. It's the first time we've met.
Likewise.
So here we are. We're almost at the end of the year. It's been a brutal time for junior explorers and developers in the space. You know, everything's sold off. You know, every share price has been beaten up a bit. Could you just give us a kind of a quick run through of the years, kind of what you've achieved during the year? Because I mean, you've had a pretty extraordinary year when I looked through your presentation and your news releases. So that if you could give a summary of where you got to in the year, that'd be great.
Yeah, certainly. You know, aside from just the share price, we had a very, very exciting year. We kicked off the year with an almost $9 million financing. It was $8.88 million financing to follow up on the Rainbow discovery and some targets that we had in the vicinity of Rainbow. That's proven to be very, very successful in the results that we put out to date. So we've drilled in nearly in excess of 35.
And just to clarify, Rainbow is the Flin Flon project, yeah?
Yeah. So the Rainbow deposit, which is located again a 30-minute drive outside of Flin Flon. So you know, in terms of Rainbow and that discovery hole, we entered the year with just 3 holes into the deposit area. That discovery was made at 900 meters vertical depth just last August, and a couple other holes we had went up to the 600 meter level. So 35,000 meters, almost 35,000 meters that we've announced into the deposit area is significant in surrounding exploration. So it's a lot of work that's been steady with 2 drills that we're just about to shut down the second of the 2 drills in the next day or two, and that's shown that Rainbow is stacking up to be really an exceptional discovery. So to that end, the grades have been quite spectacular, well north of on average 4% copper, 4 to 4.5% copper equivalent. I think ultimately will be the case between all the drilling, as even the more distal areas as well included in that. So that'll make it one of the top 10 highest grade producing mines in the world for copper. If it was a producer right now, obviously we've got a long way to go to get to that stage, but obviously the early drilling has been very promising and indicating something very special in our hands. So we started the year at 900 meters there, and we've drilled up to the 35 meter level.
35.
Yes, there's about a fence of holes that are on the 100 meter level, and there's 1 hole up around the 35 meter level.
Recently, where are we now? On the 13th of December, you published a kind of an exploration update, and you've got that really nice long section with a whole bunch of holes which have yet to be assayed. So can you just describe to me the kind of the rough orientation of it? It's what's the strike length of this? Because as you said, you've gone down from minus 900 up to pretty much close to surface. What's the strike length, and what's the kind of the average thickness?
The deposits in Flin Flon average strike are 150 meters. Yeah. And Rainbows between 150 to 200 meters in strike, depending on where you are looking within the deposit. In the Flin Flon district, they're typically elongated deposits. So for every 1 meter of strike, you look to expect, based upon the history, between 5 to 8 meters of depth extent to that. So that's how they are in terms of their widths. Their widths are typically between 4 to 8 meters, true width, in Flin Flon. With everything that we've seen right now, because the orange zone, there's 2 zones in Rainbow, orange and yellow. The orange zone's the much more pronounced one, so to speak, where it's coming close to surface. And that one is true width so far is roughly 9 meters. So we're on the thicker end of the spectrum for what's typical in Flin Flon. And certainly the grades are on the higher end of the scale too. So I can show you actually, yeah,
please do. Yeah, show us a map or a slide. I was going to ask while you're doing this, what made you, what inspired a 900 meter hole to intersect this? Because normally in exploration, what happens is the other way around. You start shallow and you go deeper, but you've kind of worked from the bottom upwards here. So there must have been something that made you target that deep hole initially?
Right. You're absolutely right. So what we did in terms of vectoring is, because they're very steeply dipping, and actually this is very ideal in plunging, ideal for the mining. Underground mining is having it near vertical the way it sits. But when you have this situation, they make a very, very small footprint from an electromagnetic standpoint, because your EM conductor, again, is about 150 meters long, about 4 to 8 meters wide at the thickest point in many instances, and often, more often than not very close to surface. So what we did is we brought in IP as a vectoring tool. The reason for which is, if you assume that the massive sulfides are not going to be, you're not going to go from just straight into the massive sulfides. You're going to see a disseminated sulfides, semi-massive sulfides going into it. That'll create a halo for IP. IP is obviously readily used in the exploration for gold because of the disseminated pyrite that the gold would come with. In base metals, this pyritic halo will really be the halo that encompasses the massive sulfides. So when we did the IP survey over more obviously area that we'd already been covered, it highlighted a completely new area. It's a brand new horizon that was previously not appreciated or understood or unknown. And when we then used the borehole EM survey, it vectored us at depth. And if you look at the camp's history, a lot of these deposits start at depth. More modern deposits, really in the past 30 years, have all been at depth. And I'll show you another slide on that. But what I was going to show you on that slide is obviously the drill spacing, how we started at depth and have now drilled close to surface.
You were targeting an IP anomaly at depth. So that's what you had, was an IP anomaly. Or was it an EM anomaly?
No, it was actually an IP. Then we pulsed. We had good geology. We pulsed the hole. Then we had an off-hole EM. So your indirect vector is your IP to get to the disseminated halo. And then your direct vector towards the massive sulfides, the most conductive massive sulfides. I should remind you, that's going to be biased to that. And the most conductive pointed us at depth there.
So you put the first hole in down at 900 meters. So it was a 1,000-meter hole or whatever it was in August last year. Is that where you started, with a deep hole?
It was 3 holes to make the discovery.
Okay, 3 holes to make the discovery.
I can walk you through that if you'd like.
Well, let's pull up that slide again, and then we can kind of just have a look at the long section, and let's talk through that.
Initially, we drilled a hole that was somewhere around over here, and we probed it, chasing the IP anomaly. And then when we probed it, it put a plate that was down here.
Okay.
Right? We drilled another hole from over here, and then it veered over here, and then we still had an off hole. So then we call it a hole off the peninsula, and I'll show you a plan view too at some point. And then that's when we hit the discovery hole PBM 111 at depth. Okay. Right? And so since that time, we focused on delineating that resource and chasing it to surface. Understanding that it's open at surface and at depth, and obviously you want to chase it to surface because you're going to be cheaper to get to from a development timeline and development costs, and you're going to go to generate cash flow much more quickly. And quite frankly, it's cheaper to drill off into closer to discovery. But if we stop for a moment and take a perspective and look at what a long section with a 777 would look like thrown onto that with Callinex Mine and 777, you can see here, again, this is very near vertical in terms of rainbows, very limited drilling, it's brand new. And then this purple and red are Callinex. Callinex was about 8.5 million tons of 125% copper, 0.5% zinc, and 0.5 gram per ton about. So basically it was about just over 2% copper equivalent. And then this is when 777 picked up. And 777, which is the big flagship mine that's shutting down next year, actually doesn't start till the top's out at 840 meter, but you can see it really balloons at depth here, and it carries on. So Rainbows is very, very shallow. It's one of the more shallow discoveries in the more recent modern Flin Flon history, because it took between Callinex to Flin Flon to that 777 mine, it was a number of years between I think 40 some odd years between finding 777 and Callinex existing.
The geology downhole, is it clearly visible? Do your geologists know when they've intersected ore?
Yeah. Well, you're hitting grades like that. It's very, very easy to see. So no, yeah, you get a pretty good idea when you're in mineralization, you're not in mineralization. Yeah.
And you're comfortable that it runs up to the 35 meter. I mean, you can see the same massive sulfide. You can see the
I can't tell you what I can see in the rocks that we haven't announced, candidly. So there's that. I mean, they're unreported. But I'd say that the drilling that we did in bringing it up to surface is based upon obviously visuals, and then when you have pending assays that eventually start coming in, you get more confirmation of that, and you go a little bit further. So I think that we're blessed in the reality that we're drilling massive sulfides, some very, very high grades. So we're not dependent on any pending assay results to continue to delineate the deposit.
That's clear and logical. It's what you'd expect if the massive sulfide continues. We can all recognize, or anybody who's spent any time on the rocks, geologist or not, you can recognize the key copper-bearing minerals and the key zinc-bearing minerals. Gold, of course, is something that one can't see visually normally. But the bulk base metals, the lead, the copper, and the zinc, you can get one's eye in relatively quickly. So if your geologists are using that as a visual guide to draw the mineralization up to, or to draw the drilling up to surface, that's a good inference that the mineralization continues. So what next? You obviously got to wait. When are you going to get the assays back for those pending holes? How many are pending? Is it?
So we've got 37 holes pending right now. And those are holes that were drilled really since September. The assay results turnaround got very, very slow. And we're hoping that those, they're improving about how bad they were at one point. And I'm not a guy, or we're not a company in general, to kind of lean on that. In terms of, we just got to continue on pressing forward and realize that things happen in life, and you've really just got to adjust and move on. So the assay results, we're very excited to be able to put them out when they come out. I think actually ultimately it's probably a better market to put them out in. I'm excited for the new year. So as they come out in the new year, we'll be able to share those and what we're up to from an exploration targeting and plans moving forward. I think it was really, really opportunity here within Rainbow. I think looking into next year, we're going to need to do drilling and focus drilling between the 300 meter down.
Max, tell me about the IP vectoring and what you've got planned in terms of the drilling. Where are you going to be focusing the drilling next year?
Yeah, so looking into the new year, we're going to need to do delineation drilling and continue that on Rainbow. We need to get on ice to do that, to drill between really the 300 meter level down to about the 800 meter level and get those infills holes that we needed to get done into that to build it into an indicated resource. As well as we need to do a couple thousand meters on the Pine Bay deposit, which is over 1 million tons historic, that just sits, a few hundred meters away from Rainbow, and also has a historic underground access to it. In addition to that, we have been vectoring in a shift to our methodology and mindset in terms of vectoring, as we've continued to do some exploration drilling to the north as well as to the west along this growth fault corridor. And then we're also waiting IP results that have been quite slow, candidly, to the south. We did a very big ICP survey that covers probably about 7 kilometers of the favorable trend to the south that'll cover both Rainbow as well as down and past the Sourdough deposit, which is a.
You have a map you can pull up.
Yeah, let me.
And what state is what condition is that shaft? Because I see you've got a shaft that goes down to about 300 meters. Is that right? Maybe a bit further.
The shaft goes down to 200 meters.
200 meters.
Yeah, and that was again put in. It's right there on the peninsula, as you can see here that I've highlighted. That's where the shaft's located. That's the Pine Bay deposit that I mentioned. This was, why the shaft was put in. It was briefly taken into production very briefly in the 1960s. And then this is where Rainbow sits. In terms of the shaft, it was capped So it needs to be looked to be rehabilitated. I think with the idea that Rainbow has the potential to come much closer to surface, I think really what you look to do is likely ramp down to the deposit over here, and then build an underground development to access to that secondary exit of some sort. Again, I'm not a mining engineer, but obviously that's something that we need to look at once we get a little bit further along the process.
Okay, so initial thoughts are build out the resource around Rainbow. Start thinking in terms of a resource figure. Have you got a date for next year? Are you aiming for a resource by mid-year or during the course of 2023? Have you got your head?
Yeah, no, I think we could do a maiden resource by mid next year. But in the meantime, we're also look to vector to make additional discoveries on the portfolio. We've already, I think, are well along that process of vectoring. We just haven't talked too much about the vectoring approach and process on the property just yet. But essentially, there's these multiple growth fault corridors that you can see highlighted here. And Rainbow is the sixth deposit that's been discovered in that corridor. There's also the Centennial Mine Horizon that runs down to the south, continues onto the property on a bigger perspective, not on this image. And we've covered that with IP and surface pulse EM. So as we've been waiting for that to be processed, we already had data coverage in this area. And what makes this area unique is that this is where you have the mapped mill rock. So these big felsic fragments have been mapped here, which means it's the most proximal to the volcanic event, essentially. Moslowski likes to tell me, our chairman, or former chairman and founder of Callinex, that, if you can see this, you kind of cup your ear because you can hear a mill running. That's why they call it mill rock out in Flin Flon. And so the more proximal to that, to give you an idea, where you look where there's a map mill rock in the town of Flin Flon, which you can go on Google Maps and show you, but there's a place called Mill Rock Hill. And when you see Mill Rock Hill, they'll take all the local geologists out there, the young ones, to learn. And within 432 meters of Mill Rock Hill is where you see the Flin Flon ore body. And as you move along that cross fault, you then get the Callinan and 777 deposits a couple kilometers away along the cross fault, right? And the beauty here is that everyone historically, all the previous operators, and you can even see from the blue dots historically, were focused on this alteration that had been mapped at surface here, and the felsics have been mapped at surface here. And I think if you look back historically, there's really no holes in this area at all. You can see the very tiny ones right here. That's a historic hole, that's a historic hole, that's a historic hole on our property. You've got that mapped mill rock, and you could potentially say you have conductors in the area that have gone undrill tested. And I think it's a real opportunity to find another discovery. There's 7 flavors or colors in the rainbow, so to speak, a 7th deposit in this rainbow corridor that contains, rainbow and other deposits. Additionally, in terms of, potential, not to dream too big here, but as you see these deposits grow, as they come and go west towards the mill rock or the big volcanic event, namely, I think Baker Patton's roughly probably about 90,000 tons historic. Cabin's about 125,000 tons historic. Pine Bay is 1.1 million tons historic. And now you have Rainbow, and I think Rainbow, obviously, I can't say on publicly about this. But
you'd be aiming for anywhere between 2 and 5 million tons, kind of logically, as a kind of a target.
Yeah, I would say closer to 5 than to 2. Certainly would be my favoring based upon at least what we put out today. And assumptions hold true. You can see from your long sections, you can make your own assumptions, I should say. But it's, it's definitely looking to be bigger than what we have just upon things at Pine Bay. So again, you keep looking along that corridor, which we've started that process of vectoring, not necessarily utilizing IP, but using other tool sets that we already have within the wheelhouse. So we, the story on that is we're vectoring. I think we're very, very early on in terms of a lot of exploration potential on the property within this cross fault or exploration growth fault corridor, as well as a long trend to the south, where it's never been covered in this way on this scale ever before using this technology and this mindset. And that's really the biggest thing is, you can do one thing. Sorry, I didn't take that down. But you can do one thing the same way, but oftentimes you're going to have the same result. And while there's the old adage, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Well, if it's broken, you probably need to fix it and change your mindset to have a different outcome.
Okay, so I know you haven't got your final assay data in. I know you're waiting for 37 holes, but a maiden resource, let's say you're aiming for it by the middle of next year. Have you started to budget for next year? Are you looking at 10,000 meters, 20,000 meters, 30,000 meters into Rainbow? And how much extra will you be able to have spare to put into the growthful area, to kind of new target areas? Are you talking 5% of your budget or 25% of your budget? Or
I think it would probably be more about 50% of our budget would be exploration relative to Rainbow drilling. I think to get to delineating Rainbow to an indicated resource within the first 800, 900 meters of surface, we're going to need to do another additional probably about 15,000 meters of drilling. And we're still obviously working on those numbers, but that's probably about where we need to be at. And that can be done very, very quickly in the winter months, because we need to do that on ice. We can be much more effective on ice. The peninsula has been a real blessing, candidly, because it's given us access to year-round drilling. But to effectively drill out some areas of this deposit, being able to move on ice is going to help us out a lot. And then in addition to that, if you kind of look at what we did this past year, we had 8.88 million. We had budgeted a 4,000 meter campaign. Ultimately, we cut a little bit short in New Brunswick, just on access. I did 3,400 meters, and then we budgeted 30,000 meters, and we've delivered north of 34,000 meters for the shareholders. And this is in a very inflationary market environment, as you can imagine. And we've got to be very grateful to our everyone involved with Callinex that extends past immediate, maybe in a core family. There's a broader Callinex family that really is bought in part of our mission to have a dramatic change for the future of Flin Flon, Manitoba. So looking forward, again, I think we can accomplish the same next year and spend a significant time. Obviously, we also need to explore Rainbow at depth. I think there's a huge opportunity at Rainbow at depth. We haven't touched Rainbow at depth, but as well on that growth fault corridor and along the trend to the south. And I think that we can be very, very cost effective with our exploration dollars. Understanding that it's going to take multiple holes to vector towards a discovery. But when we bring in the multiple tool sets, using the skill set our team has, again, let's not forget our team's found 3 of the 4 largest mines in the Flin Flon camp's history. And I do believe we're well on the way to finding, 4 out of 5.
Quick question. So you raised $9 million. You drilled 35,000 meters drilling, more or less, and it cost you how much? I mean, how much money have you got left in the kitty?
Yeah, so in terms of the Treasury's around $1 million today, less than $1 million, and that'll be obviously our G&A is very, very lean. I think our G&A, you're looking on a monthly basis, or burns 70,000 to 80,000, on any given month.
So you're going to need to raise, let's say you want to do 30,000 meters of drilling next year, you're going to need to raise a chunk of money. But the mechanics of that aside, 30,000 meters will help you vector in on a maiden resource, a Rainbow, and potential exploration on the growthful area, the Mill Rock.
Yeah, I mean, the Mill Rock area, I think we're obviously well on our way to vectoring there. We haven't announced, even any of the targeting in terms of that area. And the results from what we're working on there, we're still drilling there at the moment. So you're absolutely right. I think we're going to have more than enough bandwidth to drill, in vector. I think the unique thing that Rainbow shows, the biggest thing that Rainbow shows outside of I think really what it is a world-class high-grade copper gold discovery, is that you can go into mature camps and find near-surface discoveries. If you look at the past 30, 40 years, I think really the mindset's been is all the near surface discoveries within the camp, these districts have been found. And I don't believe that's the case. And obviously we can show you that that's not the case, right? So that's, I think, the biggest thing that we've done, aside from the economic implications of what we're looking to achieve for the community and our shareholders, is from just an exploration technical standpoint, is that, lot of these mature camps that have been written off in many ways shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm all for brownfields exploration in mature exploration environments. They're data rich, sometimes drill hole poor.
Or in instances of stuff to the west, it's not data rich at all. And that's even if you look at Rainbow, you can be data rich. No one knew about the Rainbow Horizon.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the opportunity. I think the real opportunity is not only the data, it's the lack of data and lack of understanding of the systems in a vectoring approach. If you only vector and use a one tool set, well, you're only going to find the ones that present themselves in that one way. And also, when you look at and you're trying to vector, and this is getting more technical, but when you're trying to vector along a formational unit that can have these type of deposits in the shadows of, because there's the Centennial Mine Horizon sits just 100 meters away from this thing, and from an EM standpoint is overshadowing anything else. So that takes into another account as to really how you need to use the tool sets in different scenarios that you can overlook things and you won't see things. So I think there's also areas where, like the Mill Rock, where you look and you saw the historic drilling in an area, you think, well, you really want to spend more time there, and you're in a camp that's been producing for 100 years. And quite frankly, the Pine Bay area has about 800 some odd drill holes in the area. So it's not like someone and other companies haven't spent the time to look. It's a culmination of different things, and thinking differently ultimately is the biggest part of that that I think is going to lead to success in the future, and has already led success historically for the company.
Great. So how much of your energy and effort, I mean, we talked about the kind of, if you're going to drill $30,000 meters next year, half of that's going to go into Rainbow and half of it's going to go into exploration in Flin Flon. How much of your budget is going to, mentally, are you thinking allocating to Flin Flon, and how much goes to Bathurst and how much goes to Newfinland?
Well, currently, right now, I think we're going to be moving and shifting dramatically into Manitoba. So it's going to be dominated by Manitoba, but at the same time, it was dominated by Manitoba this year. I think that really, maybe certain people might not be able to see through what we're doing as an organization, but we were spending the bulk on the high-grade copper gold discovery that has an immediate impact for Flin Flon. I mean, if you look at where we are right now at Nash Creek is very, very attractive at today's zinc price environment. You're looking at probably $189 million NPV and 8% discount rate and over 30% IRR based upon the 2018 PEA at today's spot zinc price environment. So there's a lot of opportunity in New Brunswick, in Nash Creek, but from an overall growth standpoint, we've really got to focus on where we have the biggest impact, not only for ourselves, for our shareholders, because that's what's going to allow us to transition and move a project forward into a near-term production story much more quickly. I think that we're going to be able to advance Rainbow and other discoveries on the property in unprecedented time. Actually, they're precedented. I shouldn't say unprecedented, because they're precedented, because it's been done before for the town of Flin Flon. And even the Manitoba's got such a tremendous track record in permitting and getting things into production in short timelines, even in bad metal markets and when they're not as necessary. A Reed Lake mine was a great example. That discovery was in 2007. And Reed Lake, they ultimately did a JV in 2010. It needed to be re-drilled out, which is basically just kind of start over from scratch on the resource perspective. But they went to commercial production by 2014. So that was, that's January Q1 2014. So it's a very quick turnaround. And that was a property that was 130 kilometers away. It was a 2.1 million tonner, and it had overburden. But that was able to go to production for sub $72 million capex. So I think if you look at our situation, I think it's much more attractive in many more ways than one. But that's kind of an example of how soon you can get something into production in Manitoba at a time right now that's very, very critical for the community. Again, 777 is the flagship mine in Flin Flon. It's shutting down next May. That's 785 direct jobs. Some of them are going to be offset potentially, but they're forecasting 50 jobs by 2023. So, if you want to shift as much as you want to around, I don't know how you make up for 785 direct jobs. And then there's so many more indirect. So with that being said, reclamation liabilities, Hudbay has increased them up to $322 million off of $140 million. And stated reclamation needs to go out to 21-22. So you've got a mill that's sitting in there that's got a capacity of 5,000 tons per day. And they're now looking to reprocess tailings. So I think there's a real opportunity to alleviate some of the pressures the community has, that certainly maybe the other operator might have, given that, Rainbow is so high grade, it's near surface, it's within 200 meters of a hydroelectric power line, and you can drive up to it. Yeah,
you're still a way away from thinking about production in that sense. You've yet to get to your maiden resource.
Right. I understand that, but when I guess I didn't indicate with Reed Lake, they started their development work as they were working on their PEA. They didn't get their feasibility study published to basically after they already made the construction decision, and we're doing the development work at Reed Lake. And that's a good example of people acting on very, very short timelines. And I think if you look at the situation for Flin Flon, if you're looking at a maiden resource at Q2 next year, I think you can accelerate that quickly. And so one of the key things I think that we need to do a better job of, or I don't say better job, I think we're doing an okay job, we just don't talk heavily about it, is working with policymakers on streamlining a permitting timeline so that while we drill out Rainbow.
Sorry, while you're drilling out Rainbow, you're saying work on the permitting so that you don't have future delays. Yes. Okay, so tell me who's funding, who's backing Callinex, and who can you draw on for the next round? I mean, what's your interaction with the capital markets?
Oh, I mean, the capital markets have always been very kind to Callinex. We're super grateful for the shareholder bases that we have had in the past. Prior to the most recent financing, then we brought on a really incredible round of shareholders in the more recent financing that we did in April that are all still along the story. I mean, it's been a tough year in terms of the share price appreciation, share price performance, but that's not indicative of obviously the accomplishments the company's made, and we have been slowed by areas. So we're very, very grateful to have this patient supportive shareholders that we have in the company, and we've also looked to expand that. And so in terms of the most recent round of financing we did, for example, we had Delbrook was a shareholder, it was a big lead order into that, SSI, a commodity discovery fund, Gold 2000, Northfield Capital, and previous shareholders, the Savelli family and Clarion Finance took a position, and they were formerly with Clarion Finance, as well as friends and family participated in the last round as well. And then we've also very long-term, stable institutional shareholders like Resource Capital Funds that have been around since 2015. Myself,
why the? I mean, how can you explain the sell-off? Because it's not just the markets. I mean, because you had this great run-up in February, and then it's been tough going since then, hasn't it?
Yeah, Kaylee, it has been tough going since then, and I think that's just indicative of being early in a discovery. I think naturally, when you have a discovery, you've got to tick people's boxes, right? And we entered the year, we were down. We had a 900 meter vertical depth hole. It was deep. People didn't have understanding in terms of what is a mineable width, mineable grade in a situation like that, or because Flin Flon discoveries are so unique and so infrequent. There's a big education around that. So I think what's happened is really we've come off since September. We've come off September because we hadn't had an ability to update the market with news flow. But at the same time, I can't force that, and I can understand in life that when I, as a leader, am trying to run sail a ship, that we're going to be hit by different type of storms. This, quite frankly, a delay in the assays is, a weaker storm more than anything. And I think often than not, because of the challenges in the negative mindset that typically is indicative of the exploration business, that's driven by the kind of perception of low success rate, that anytime a company might go quiet for any short period of time, irrespective of what the realities are, the negative thought can overwhelm that. And I think that not from an institutional shareholder base, because I think the institutional shareholders and family offices certainly know the game and they're more patient in terms of what they're seeing. But I think that investors that might be more newer to the resource space or might be more on looking for a quick turn aren't as patient. And that can lead to some low volume pressure on the stock, and that goes into it. And then you kind of have tax loss selling right now as well. So just like last year, we were in a situation. I feel way better than I did last year. Even I was super excited. Last year I was another planet, and it had my excitement. And we got dealt a blow, and we overcame that, and we recapitalized the company, and we kept going on. And we recapitalized the company. Most of that stock, because of the ability with raising capital at charitable flow through, was priced at $6.40 a share. So there wasn't a whole lot of dilution to that end. So, I mean, we're going to be cognizant of dilution. We've got to be cognizant of the inherent hurdles that our business is going to have, like any other business, and we've got to manage around that. And that'll be, come at us in different ways. This is not going to be the only hurdle we ever face, or only, but at the same time, the winds can shift very dramatically in our favor. And I think we're well positioned to capture that, because we haven't been able to announce roughly half the assays from Manitoba.
Yeah, well, there's a case for getting an XRF gun, so that you can dolly up some, you can grind up some pulps and do some of the sample prep on site and get those XRF data coming out sooner rather than later. But
the reason why we don't do that is it's never benefited me. My experience with putting out visuals, putting out any estimates, wasn't ever met with any kind of gratitude. If there's ever anything positive I've ever said in that kind of regard, candidly, where we've announced visuals or anything like that, it was met with skepticism. And I go back to that negative mindset where everyone vectors the most negative thing. I remember one of the earlier discovery holes that we'd put out pre-Rainbow, by going back to 2015 as a lesson learned. We put out visuals, and the commentary I got back was, "Oh, it's all pyrite." And everything ran like 3% copper, So yeah. Even when you do something like that, I think I'm candidly going to be cautious on ever trying to put F numbers out or anything like that. I think we just got to realize that we'll maintain things. It's a very, very tight capital structure. It can very quickly be cleaned up quite easily after we get through tax loss selling on just a little bit of good news aside. So I'm not too worried about that. And I really focus my energy on the positives and driving positive outcomes. And that's how you just drive discoveries.
Well, great. I look forward to seeing the results. As a geologist, I can kind of draw the dots, and I can do a very simple kind of volume calc. I've got an idea of what tonnage you should be looking at and what grade you should be looking at. I apply appropriate haircuts and risk factors accordingly. I think you're onto something really exciting. So congratulations for the work that you've done this year. And I look forward to seeing the next 37 holes, if they come in one or two batches. It doesn't really matter. But I hope to see that the confirmation of the mineralization to surface, which presumably your geologists have seen, otherwise they wouldn't have motivated the geology up that in that direction. And looking forward to seeing your progress towards the twin goals of continuing exploration to the west and the south, and also working towards the maiden resource. And I expect that when it comes to the capital raise, that you will have a lot of your existing institutions following their interest.
Not only, I don't like to limit myself to the existing institutions. I think the beautiful thing about what we have, what I'm so grateful for, first of all, is for the community of Flin Flon, because that's what drove all the decisions, right? I mean, you ask why we did what we do, what mandate has been. It's been to find the next mine to feed into that community's needs, because it was a very pressing situation for the community. So to be able to execute on that has been one of the most proudest achievements so far. Obviously, we've got a lot more work ahead of us to firm that up, economics and all that. But certainly, it's been the most exciting of the years, and I do believe, with a high degree of conviction, that this is just the beginning of even more exciting things to come for the company. So I really do appreciate the vote of confidence and support, and we are very, very excited about everything that we've been able to accomplish so far. But do believe it's just scratching the surface for what's to come.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thanks so much for having me.